welcome, everybody, for episode 12 of the Monkey Business Show. Kyle, you're back. What's up?
I don't
You
know.
brought reinforcements today.
I did, yeah. Well, I don't know if you wanted me or if you just wanted me because I could get Cap here, but either way, I'm back again. And there's no delay either, so anyone who's sick of me is going to be really upset.
Oh, I'm already
Amazing.
sick
Caps,
of you.
welcome,
so.
dude.
Thank you for having me on. I'm looking forward to. Honestly, I am looking forward to spend time with Kyle because I haven't actually spent that much time with him. He was too busy at WePlay.
It's true. There was a lot going on in Dubai.
Johan is our budget guest, also here. What's up, buddy?
I'm here every week, and you don't pay me shit for it. What's up, man? I've had a nice and long day. Excited to talk some. I don't know what we're gonna talk about. Hopefully, a little bit of Dota. Hopefully, a little bit of OG Dota because we got almost back to back, one day in between. Maybe I'm the most excited guy in this room, but yeah, I'm doing good, man.
Okay, so today we have a very special episode because we've been discussing how we're going to talk about DPC and North American Dota and what is the most, let's say, less aggressive or politically correct way to talk about it, but still actually get to learn something. So I have a kind of a format that I would like to propose to you guys. So we're going to do like when we're in school and we're doing the debate team, I am going to play Valve. I'm going to play and defend everything that Valve thinks and how they see it. And I will be responding as Valve to all the info, input, and suggestions that you guys have. And I would like to have this be a constructive way for you, which are the experts, to help me get better with my system.
So when you say respond like Valve, do you also mean you're not going to respond most of the time?
Don't do it. Don't do it. Johan, we are actually working on a lot of things, and I'm sorry if we missed some of your emails, but like we always follow up.
Opening emails is overrated.
Email us. Yes. Okay, so that's my idea, because I think that there's so many things to discuss and so many things that we have discussed behind closed door and in different parts of the episode that now that I have three of you guys, I think it would be the perfect way to do it.
I'm ready. I almost broke my mic, but I'm ready to talk.
Okay, awesome. So we have had different kind of formats throughout the years. We went from the 2 majors to the 3 majors to the 15 majors and 16 million minors. And we finally arrived to this current system that was supposed to create a stable Dota ecosystem where every region is very similar. We support every region financially the same way. And we have a constant outflow of games that the regions move into the internationals that then goes into TI. And we thought that we had this right because, other games have done similar system to this, including Riot with the well-known League of Legends title. But what are the things that immediately you guys detected that were not running or supposed to be done the way that maybe people in Dota are used to? Kyle, would you like to start?
There's not enough Dota played, man. And I understand there's like this boosting of the tier 2 scene and what have you, but I still don't really understand. There's a fundamental misunderstanding of how Dota teams prepare and play competitively. You're either on or you're off. The meta is changing like every couple of days, every week. OG wins a match with Huskar mid, right? Tomorrow, that's going to be understood and known. Teams will have an answer for Huskar. So the game is changing every day. And the reason LANs are so cool is because there's a story of the event, and you get to see like teams develop over a short period of time. It's also the way majors are played. It's the way TI is played. It's how Dota historically has always been played at the highest level. It's an event. When you do DPC leagues, you make these guys go boot camp because the other not as organized as I'd like to be. Main point, Dota 2 international game, all right? It's incredibly common to have teams from numerous different regions and parts of the world. And that means that staying in one place for 6 weeks is really difficult. Poor Ice, if he wants to play with an international team, has to get like special visas. You know, we had players in America who were forced to be in Mexico because they were waiting for visas. You've got these guys like in having to go to Turkey and Jordan and Romania because it's non-Schengen, and because the major is in Schengen area, you can't stay in a Schengen area for the group, whatever. So just making life problems for everybody involved. But you have to be there boot camping hardcore Dota for one match per week, which is super stressful and tedious. And there's no playoffs. There's too many things. I'm sorry. I got to stay on message. There's like 7 things.
Yeah, there was 3 different things there. I think the first one you said was there was not enough games, but then you also said it was too long. So let's deal with one of those at a time.
So I would say, from my perspective as Valve, I can see how in North American sports we have football. Football has only very few games a season, and it makes every game. Excuse me, Cal, let me finish the point. And we'll get back to you. But football has only limited amount of games. And it means that the games itself become more valuable because every game is amazing. Versus, for example, in baseball, that we have seasons with 100 million games. And at some point, people don't follow those games because you know that you're going to have another game tomorrow, and another game tomorrow, and another game tomorrow. You say that we don't have enough Dota. But in this system, if you put all regions together, we have more Dota than we ever had before. We have pretty much Dota 24/7 between Division 1 and Division 2, North American, South American, China, CIS, and all that. And you're talking about visas and all that, but in a world where we were also traveling around the world, those problems were there either way. So don't you think that the system that we have right now really addresses those
visas
concerns?
For travel are different for visas for residency. As someone who has been deported from a country I stayed in for too long, they are different things, okay? You need a lot more work to get a residency permit than you do to enter on some sort of ESTA or tourist visa. Second, you bring up football. The reason there's a week-long, first off, why is football NFL only on Sunday? By the way, it's also on Monday, and it's also on Thursday. And then when college football ends, it's also on Saturday. Because high school is Friday, college is Sunday, and NFL is Saturday, and NFL is Sunday, Monday, Thursday. Okay? And the reason that there's a week between games is because, like, have any of you guys played NFL football? Have you played football? You need time off. You're brutalizing other people. You're being brutalized for 1 hour. People are sore. If you dive into the history of the NFL, like not just concussions, but also painkiller abuse is rampant because people are fucking up their bodies. They need that time. It's why players hate Thursday night games. You can't compare the way the NFL functions to an esport because the primary reason for the NFL schedule is health, which is the same reason I think we should recognize what esports are, and for player health, allow them to play more games in a shorter window so that they're not forced to sit around for 10 fucking days with nothing to do but pub and scrim waiting for their one important match. You know the other thing football has at the end of its league? A playoff.
Okay. So I have a question for Johan, and I'm going to try to add some of these things. Johan, the other day, discussed very lengthily that at the end of the day, we were trying to make the best games possible. And Dota had to be the best game possible. That's why we wanted to put the grand finals by themselves. Don't you think that if you have a whole week to prepare just for a best of 3, that gives you the best version of that game possible?
In one world, you can argue, of course, if you treat it like the most important game of your life. But the problem is, it's a group stage game. It's what it is. It's a prolonged group stage, and there's very little at stake in these individual games, except for the potential to then get to the majors, to get points, and then to get to TI. You're playing on the first step ladder, so you're so far away from the end, and this needs to be extra hyped. This needs to be hyped over what it is. But when you have it like Cap was saying, you have too few games over too long. The longer you stretch it, you lose a lot of that hype. You lose a lot of that intensity. You lose a lot of that rivalry. There's also something that is too short. Surely you don't want to be playing Navi 3 times a week, every week, the same team. But if you have one game every week for 6-7 weeks, that is stretching it. You're stretching it really far the other way, and it takes away from from the play, like you can, of course, teams do it and they try really hard to do it every week to take every game as serious as a TI game, because that's at the end what you want to call this. But then comes the amount of burnout, and what Kyle is also saying, it creates a very unhealthy atmosphere, especially for a game that is Dota, because here in the West, more so than in other parts of the world, it's international teams. And if you go to sports, or if you play NFL or whatever, you are relocating somewhere and you're able to go there and you're able to stay there. It's much more complicated for most teams, most Western teams. And it comes with a level of sacrifice that I would argue is higher than most sports in terms of time and in terms of not having really a life. This is like on the most extreme side of things that I can imagine. Mm-hmm. So you run into a lot of issues very quickly that then leads into burnout, fatigue, demotivation. And then where's your good games going to be at? Where are your top quality games? If anything, this season, it does mostly good for progressing public Dota matches, because they get to analyze each game more lengthily. And that is just way more of a strain on Dota teams. This is a strategy game where strategy trumps almost everything. And when your strategy gets dissected every week, your ability to develop strategy quickly is just extremely diminished. Yeah, you can always argue, yeah, you have a week to do more, but it doesn't work like that. It's such a hard, there's so much to think about in this game, and there's so many variables that when you try to do it every week, week after week after week, and it's 6 weeks, and you're not even at a playoff, you're not even at a game that feels like it really matters, you run into all these issues.
Mm-hmm. If I could jump in here for to piggyback on top of that, I would disagree with the concept that we are trying to get the best games for the DPC, because I think that we would be structuring that entirely differently. For example, we would have stakes, but I think the biggest thing that if the idea of getting the best games, we're not trying to get the best games for the DPC, and I think particularly you as Valve would you want the best games for TI, right? And in order to get the best games at TI, you need the best teams for TI. And in order to get those teams, the way they get there in the first place is a method that is different than how they will perform at TI. The DPC is 1 week a game, and that means that it is an entirely different skill set than what they do at TI, which is grinding matches back to back to back, right? That's an entirely different skill set. And so we are fundamentally getting the wrong teams at TI. And therefore, it's not necessarily surprising when certain teams say, like, I don't want to like go too hard on like Alliance. There was other teams, Aster actually, as an example, as teams who did well on the online DPC league, but when they went to a LAN where they had to play multiple matches back to back, it's not terribly surprising that they flopped as a result, because there were two different skill sets. So if you want the best games at your majors and at your TI, you should be setting up the structure so that the teams who are going to be performing at that major and TI are also showing the skills leading up to that, which would be performing back-to-back matches within a week.
100%. I think that's one of the best arguments. I just want to chime in because people bring up football. Football keeps the same structure in the playoffs, right? But Dota, if you say TI, like TI is what we're playing for, TI is a big-ass group stage over 4 days and then double a limb, go. So we're not preparing teams for what it counts. Like they're not able to practice for what actually matters. And in the DPC league, they're playing only really for the chance to go to TI and $1,000 per place. So if it's all about TI, why don't we allow our players to train for TI? Are we going to like what that's the biggest fundamental that I think is the strongest question about what doesn't make the system make sense.
Awesome. So I would say that you guys spoke about a lot of things, and I'm going to try to dissect some of them. You guys say that there is not enough Dota played, but then you say that players are more burnout than ever. Can you explain why is that, Johan? I mean, all of you guys have been players, but it sounds like paradoxical.
So it's like Kyle is saying, you're either on or you're off. When you have one game a week and you have one more official game next week, you are playing 5 out of those 7 days at a minimum. Most likely you're playing 7 out of those 7 days. You're preparing, you're getting ready. Every time you make a move, every time you make a change in your strategy, every time you show something in a scrim, Dota changes. The public games change, the official games change. Everybody learns from each other all the time. So there's only 2 real games happening in a span of 2 weeks, but there's 2 weeks of Dota happening. So you're missing the point of practice versus, because again, it's strategy, it's meta, it's figuring out what's broken in the game. And this is a constant race to finding out how to break it. And when you put it over 6 weeks, it is 6 weeks of Dota. It is not 6 games. It is 6 weeks. And it's the same thing at TI. If you were to have, you would be talking about how long or how many days there are between a group stage and playoffs. That would also influence the Dota that you're going to see in the playoffs. The more time you give people, the more it develops, the more the public games are developing. People come up with answers all the time that people pick up on in these games. And if you think that you can play 1 week, train 2 days, and then play next week, you're going to fall behind no matter who you are. So it's an illusion. It's an illusion.
And that's
so, Kai, one second. Yeah. Are you trying to tell me then, because I really want to understand this point, that even though there are less games, the work that teams are doing behind closed doors is actually even larger, because you have to reinvent yourself and you have to play more and you have to play more. So teams are playing more than ever. It's just the fans don't get to experience any of the games that they're playing.
I can just tell you right now that almost every team in Tier 1 division for DPC, almost all of them have sacrificed 80% of their day, every day, 7 days a week for this game. Some people more. I'm watching 3 of the guys here do it. I know that the guys at home are also doing it. It is a never-ending grind, and it's a race to the finish, and people are fierce competitors here. And yeah, if everybody was chilling, then we could all chill together. But the problem is, PogChamp are not chilling. Like, you have all these other teams that are not chilling. They're grinding. They're getting better. They're going to beat you, and they're also going to figure out like the simple meta-breaking things over time. I mean, simple. Like, it becomes simple because of the pubs. They spam it. They show you farming patterns. They show you this and that. And yeah, you practice 2 days a week, and you go into that 1 game a week thing, like official. You're going to lose these games. You're going to drop these games. And then what Cap is saying is you're not getting the best teams at TI, because the best teams are just not able to grind as much, as hard, or they're not. Yeah. It puts them at a risk. It puts worse teams at an advantage to take these games every week as well. It's more hype for them as well to beat, a TI attending team. And the TI attending team is like, yo, what is this shit? Like, just get me to TI. I need to play the best Dota in the world.
As Tal said, when you sleep, your enemy trains. And there's an intense pressure for every eking out. Any people in Europe, as an example, they're not playing for money. It's from $30,000 to $23,000, right? You're not playing for money. You're playing for DPC points. You're playing for a shot at TI. It's the whole motivation for everything that people are doing. And I would also argue, of all games, Dota is the one that gives the largest advantage to the underdog. And maybe you think like maybe this is a good thing. This is debatable. But if you were to take the best team in the world against the 50th best team in the world in Counter-Strike, 99 times out of 100, the best team's going to win. Why is that? Because you have significantly more actual maps, right? Counter-Strike is 3 maps for, best of first to 16. So you're playing a lot of different maps and rounds of Counter-Strike. Dota is a BO3, and Dota is incredibly complex. So you can straight up just lose games on draft. Like OG, probably the best at cheesing, right? Notel has cheesed his way to $7.5 million, right? Alchemists, Naga Sirens. There's so many heroes that fundamentally change the game of Dota, okay? Coddle, Wisp, Broodmother, Alchemist, any kind of illusion carry, Huskar mid. You can't possibly prepare for all of them, but that's what gives these guys so much stress, because you go into this match, the only one of this week, and you have no fucking idea what's going to happen. You're practicing as much as you can. You iterate as much as you can, but at the end of the day, you can't possibly prepare. It's like trying to set up, you're thinking you're going to go play chess, but they're taking pieces from every other board game. You have no real idea what to expect. And it's why I don't do this, man. It's way too stressful. Like, and you're not even playing for money, right, and you're away from home.
So to try and to redact this point before we move to the next one is, I think that I understand what you guys are saying. We were trying to create a system. We were getting the best games once a week that will give everybody time to prepare. But by doing so, we have created another effect. That is, the problem is that people are under so much pressure because you have to spend all the time, instead of what I thought you guys were going to be doing, that is resting and having a life, you're just using it on Dota. because everybody's putting the time. And because if you don't put the time, then you will never get points. And I can see what you guys are saying, and you guys very legit points. But then I would like to put it back to Cup. You're saying that the best teams are not making it to TI. But I think that every team has the same chances, right? So what do you refer by that?
Yeah, I think just like teams have different strengths and weaknesses when it comes to playing inside of the game. When it comes to strategy, some teams are better being able to do 5-man deathball. Some teams are better at split pushing. People have personalities and strengths and weaknesses in that regard. Teams and players also have strengths and weaknesses when it comes to how often they play Dota. And so if we're trying to set up a system where we get the best games at majors and at the international, the format of the majors and the international is a group stage where you play multiple best of twos in a day. So maybe you're playing 6 to 8 games in one day. You go into a playoffs at some point in time. You could be playing up to 6, or even if you go to the grand finals, 8 games in one day. That is an entirely different skill set than what the DPC trains you for, which is playing one best of 3 over the course of a week. Maybe you play 2 for one of those weeks. So it's a different skill set that we're using to get these teams to be able to qualify in the first place. And in fact, that's kind of ironic because it's the same skill set for qualifying for the DPC, the open qualifiers. It takes that same format of the majors and the TI, which is playing multiple matches in a day for a couple of days, and then boom, they qualify for the DPC. And then the DPC changes that up entirely and says, okay, now you're only playing one best of 3 a week. And some teams are going to be better at being able to prepare for that. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be a good LAN team. It doesn't mean they're going to be good at being able to play multiple matches. Great examples, we already listed Acer and Alliance. And I think on the opposite side of things, Nigma is a great example of a team that is great at LAN. And they have not performed well in these DPC formats where they only play one series a week. And I think you want to be able to have teams that perform well on LAN at TI, and the DPC doesn't prepare you for that.
Yep.
So, Cap, to help me understand it, so the biggest product of the year is TI, correct? Everybody is clear about it. We are clear about it. You are clear about it. And we want, as Valve, the best TI possible, correct? Yep. But because my format throughout the year doesn't mimic TI at all, by defect, I am not bringing the best performing teams for this product.
Yep, exactly right.
So I might be bringing the best performing teams of the year, but it's not the best performing teams for this product, and I care about the product.
Yeah, unless you want to change TI to be 6 weeks long. One best of 3 a day.
Okay. It's actually very important. Kyle, Cap, I actually never thought about this because I am in a smart company and I saw what League of Legends was doing. And I said, okay, well, League of Legends has games every week. But it's true, Worlds is not 1 week. World is 5-6 weeks, different countries, and we only play 1 game in the week. But yeah, it's actually a very good point. The best important thing is TI. We need to get the best performing teams for this specific model. And if you don't replicate this model throughout the year, then you will never get the best ones. Yep. Great point. I'm going to write it down and we can just have this summary later. And Kyle, you were going to bring another good point. Go ahead, please.
I was just going to discuss the incentive structure and the prize pool. No one's playing for prize money. The prize pool being the same across all regions is kind of silly. And I know it's like, oh, well, everyone gets the same. Isn't that fair? Well, the cost of a subscription on Twitch is different based on your region. The cost of living in different regions is just different because fucking economics. The cost of Tinder is different based on your location. Okay. It's aware. Like, we understand things cost different amounts in different places, yet the prize pools are equitable across all regions. Different regions, such as, say, Western Europe, have larger brands with bigger followings that are effectively sacrificing their ceilings in order to be playing equitably in the same format for the same money as everybody else. But I can tell you, like, guaranteed, having OG and Nigma and Secret at a LAN event is huge. That's a big deal. You have an S-tier LAN. You're going to have S-tier viewership. But we're preventing these teams from actually capitalizing on the work that they've done year over year over year. Notel won 4 majors, then 2 TIs. Now he's owning a team, and he can't properly monetize that team because he can't send them to LANs. We talk about NFL. The DPC lasts just as long as the NFL season, but for a fraction of the money. You're still like teams still have to pay the same salaries, right? But suddenly, you look at 2017, we had 22 LAN events. 22.
Okay, so let me just break down what you're saying, because you're once again bringing a lot of topics together, and all of them are very important. Number one, we are saying that the money that the DPC is paying is equal in every region and is equal across that, which I think is a good solution as Valve. But you're telling me that unfortunately it does not represent reality, because different regions have different cost of living within the region, correct?
Yeah.
But now, as Valve, I have a problem. That the problem is very hard to quantify. Where do you live? Do you live in LA? Do you live in Wyoming? Do you live in Peru? Do you live in Mexico City? Do you live in Singapore? Do you live in Kuala Lumpur? Or do you live in the middle of it? And then it becomes very, very hard. So maybe as Valve, I think that even though this version is unfair, maybe it's the only fair version.
Yeah. I would let's just all have a group reading of Harrison Bergeron, and we'll see where this takes us.
Kyle,
I don't believe this is the way to go.
If I was your lawyer, I would tell you that I think there are different ways of tackling this, where we tackle this differently. Okay, because I think as Valve, I think it's actually fair that they give everybody the same amount of money. But you brought a very important point, that the value of the viewer and the value of the teams in Europe and in other regions generates more value and more hype for someone. So now let's talk about this again. If I was your lawyer, I would say I would love to see the TO's revenue in each one of the regions, people that own the DPC. Because OG, Secret, Liquid, Tundra, Gaming, Alliance, all the European region is stuck. So any person that has that region, even though I think it's fair that all of them get the same prize pool, that's South America, but that is generating more value for someone. And teams are not participating in that revenue. Is that correct, Johan, as a team owner?
That is correct.
Okay.
Can I try?
Yeah, please go ahead.
You can look at broadcast quality. Mm-hmm. Look at the difference in how the English language coverage is operated, and it becomes very clear which regions can be profitable, right? Europe is going to have a studio LAN. It's going to have a lot of people bidding for it. You're going to have the best talent and a real show, right? South America has online remote casting. The English coverage of the Chinese DPC has off-site remote casting.
So
that's
Kyle, wouldn't you say then that as Valve, I have created more value for teams like OG and Secret and all that, because by itself it regulates itself? Yes, I might give the same price pool to everybody, but the value of OG is reflected on how good the casting is.
Yeah, but it's about visibility. You're playing one match every week. Previously, you'd play 2 LANs in 1 month. You'd have more matches in one LAN than you will for the entirety of the DPC. And in addition, LANs get more viewership. They get higher quality viewership. You get better KPIs, and it's just better. It's better for brand. It's what esports is. It's historic. It's tradition. There's a reason that you have, give me one memory that you have about an iconic Dota match that wasn't at a LAN.
Okay.
Since when is online Dota the story of Dota? Since when is regional competition supposed to be the primary calendar soak? When East versus West has always been the story that got people to tune in.
Okay. So now let me answer this. Again, I'm Valve, okay? I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I am not erasing LANs. I am putting LANs after the DPCs. And the hunger that everybody will experience will make the LAN even more hyped. Don't you think? Like if you eat sushi every day, sushi is not special. But if you have finally all this team coming together on these massive, amazing events throughout the year, wouldn't it be like very cathartic?
If it weren't that so many teams, I mean, a lot of teams are going to watch from home. And you're saying basically if we create artificial scarcity, if we make everyone hungry, won't they be happier when they're given a meal?
Yes. And wouldn't that means that we have a higher chance of making more monies on media rights because we will have more bidders bidding for those media rights, and the same thing for advertisement?
It doesn't really work that way, because when you're thinking about media and content, you're not competing with just other Dota events. You're competing with all other content. So if you're a tournament organizer, you're likely moving away into other things where there's more opportunity to create events.
Okay.
The Dota LAN is like, isn't this major scheduled against the CSGO major as an example?
Yes,
like,
that is.
Like,
as Valve, I find it very hard to defend this one. That I have my two competing products. Especially with a lot of Dota people was the CSGO, and a lot of CSGO fans was Dota.
I wonder if they sell the combo tickets. I would like a combo ticket. I can go to either venue.
Dude, I can. Okay, sorry, I was gonna say I can. I'm gonna start doing the Johan Wii. Well, we can't even go to both of them at the same time. But I'm Valve, so I'm gonna stay in character. So you guys bring a very. I want to just nail a little bit more of something that you guys said. And again, I will tee it up for you guys to give me the answer that I do want. You're telling me that casters are making a good living. You're telling me that, which by the way, I actually, tier 1 casters only then. No, not even? Who is making a good living out of this system? Someone has to be.
There's probably... Yeah, I mean, I don't want to like blow up my friend's spots, but basically, if you're not working a region that has like, if you only have one region, you're not like, I mean, depends on what you would define as a living, but I would not consider it a job I would want to do if I only had one region. And it also gives a ton of power to the organizations that have the rights, because there are no other events. So there's only one game in town, and it puts you in a really weird position where, it's suddenly like, oh, wow, if I don't accept this offer, no matter how good it is, well, I'm not working for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Like,
so, Cap, let me put it this way. So, Cap, I'm going to tell you what I was intending as Valve, and let me know if I achieve it. I wanted to create a stable system for everybody, for casters, for TOs, and players, where you make a good living, players make a good living, we all have a little bit more settled calendar, and that way we can all grow together. Am I achieving that?
I think maybe you're achieving that at a minimum level. I think we've already discussed the fact that the prize pool for the DPC for certain regions, it doesn't come out to very much money considering the length of time that the players have to play. For talent, it is better because of the fact that it is a lot of consistent work at one point in time. But I guess the biggest problem that I would have from a casting perspective is that when I originally saw the studio setup, I thought there was supposed to be competition between the regions. Basically, that every tournament organizer would be bidding for the best talent and putting together the best production for the best show to try and get the most viewers. But the reality is because the calendar is separated so much that tournament organizers don't actually really compete head to head, right? Because there's very little overlap between when the games are happening, and there is also just a lack of the prime games that are going to be happening, right? My prime game for if I'm Western Europe is going to be, Nigma draws a lot of fans versus like Secret. And I only get that once. I only get that once out of the entire 6 weeks. That is going to draw the most amount of viewers, and it's the match that I can sell the most out of. And I'm only going to get that once in exchange for 6 weeks of production costs, of hiring talent and housing them for 6 weeks, the flights that are involved, everything that involves with basically keeping the lights on. But I only be able to get the big match once, and I think that is probably a bit problematic. There's also the topic of competition between tournament organizers right now, but that's, I think, a little separate.
Okay, I get it. So let me figure out if we can move forward to a few things also that we have connected before. I was very distraught and worried when I saw on Twitter. I feel that I have to constantly remind this during the podcast. I am taking the voice of Valve. That what I think from my experience with them and from other TOs and other developers that we're working, this is what they're thinking. It's a hypothetical, okay? So For me, I was very distraught when I saw comments online where the major was canceled about people regretting spending their youth playing this game as professionals because they could not really make a living out of it. And obviously I don't want that. I'm Valve. I love my players, I love my community, and I love everything. So there was a moment I was like, fuck, what did we do wrong, you know? And maybe I need the players like you guys to tell me about this. Is it really that hard to make a living out of this game? Like if you're playing a tier 1, because I want imagine all the Division 1 players, all of them should be making good living. This is a good job, you know? Are we not achieving that?
I mean, I love the idea. I think we should be aspiring for more than trying to make sure people are paid like minimum wage to play Dota with and like just dedicate their lives to something. Really, what you're playing for is not the money, it's the lottery ticket. It's the potential to possibly get to TI. DPC points are why people play. If there were no DPC points in the DPC, I don't think half the teams are even going to play, because it's a bad format for limited. Like, let's say you finish middle of the pack, 25K for 6 weeks, split 5 ways. Your manager is probably getting a cut. Your organizer is probably getting a cut. But let's say everyone gets $5,000, $5,000 for 6 weeks, and then there's the break. So $5,000 for 2 months. That is, I believe, less than minimum wage in California, assuming people are working 40 hours a week, and they're working more than that because they live and breathe Dota 2. You can argue like, oh, well, they have salaries, et cetera, et cetera. Well, those salaries, like, the big secret, esports doesn't really make money, guys. So you're subsidizing your Dota team in the hope that maybe they make it to TI. And if they don't make it to TI, I don't think that there's a possible way you could have you do not have a profitable Dota team. Fact, if your Dota team does not play at TI. And even if they do, you probably still don't have a profitable Dota team. I don't think it's any coincidence that the best teams in Dota are player-run organizations. Like, there are teams. Dota is a sick game. A lot of people watch Dota, okay? I'm in LA now. There's a lot of people here that kind of casually follow Dota, that work for teams, FaZe, 100 Thieves, G2. They'd love to have a Dota team if it made any financial sense whatsoever, but it doesn't. You're just throwing money and gambling with your players and hoping, just maybe hoping, they go win TI.
I will add that he listed North America. He just listed North American orgs, and there's only 3 orgs currently sponsoring Dota 2 teams in the NA DPC: TSM, EG, and Wildcard. Everybody else is unsponsored. So you have to imagine that North American orgs are more likely to be looking for teams within their own region to be hosting, and NA is lacking the most amount of sponsors. So I think that just adds to Kyle's point.
So let me ask you something, because I'm for the first time thinking about the economics. So it's really good that we're talking about it. So if you are good enough to be on Division 1 team, which is, by the way, very hard. It's very hard, right? It's very hard. You have to put thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours to be a Division 1 player. So if you make your dream and you're finally a Division 1 player and you've finished top 1 in your DPC league, which means all the qualification, all the work to get there, you're making $3,000 for every 2 months, which is, imagine, $3,000 a month. That is my ceiling, correct? And that is not first very appetizing. It's not very tempting. Like, oh, I should devote my life to be the best Dota player in the world so I can make $3,000 a month. That is not exciting. And the way that we solved it was like, well, but you have organizations covering your salary. So it's 3,000 plus your organization. But somehow we haven't created a system that is appetizing enough for them to get in. Is that the problem, guys? Johan, is that how you see it?
Not just that you've gotten them out.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's partially true. It's very hard to monetize on Dota. It took us a long time, and I would say, like, with big risks. Dota has been always historically has been one of the riskiest, if not the riskiest, esport to kind of get into. But you can see with what Kyle mentioned as well, is that in some regions you have following, you have fan base, and you actually have an ability to monetize enough so that it starts making some business sense. But yeah, I would say for the most part, it's not the case. For the most part, it's too much of a risk. For the most part, people get burned, and the economics in Dota are pretty skewed and pretty messed up when it comes to certain things. Obviously, TI takes a big part of that attention, but now we also have this system where even for the competitor, it was more enticing when Corona happened and we had some online tournaments to actually play some of these games. For sure in Europe, I think the only ones that really benefited or that got something more out of the system were those regions where they don't really get to see any action, but where there was action, where there was like a foundation, where things have been built up. This new system just came in and trampled on it and made it much worse and much less enticing. Also, I'm talking financially, I'm talking from an organizational point of view, like transparency, viewership, KPI, like things like ways to monetize. When you
And to clarify, that was good. It is good that South America and Southeast Asia specifically were given more support. Same even with NA to an extent.
Yeah.
But I think we've accomplished the goal, right? SEA is fucking hype. Those teams are stacked. Almost everyone's got a sponsor, and that is a very competitive region. South America still has a little bit of work to do, but I personally think that what would benefit SA the most would be more international competition. It's the brain drain, Dota is a mental game. You need experience and exposure to people at that higher level, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've played against Johan and Kuro and Puppy, and it's a different experience. I think you were even saying it at that last LAN. You're playing Puppy on LAN. This is something he's done this literally thousands of times. You're in your 5th game on stage. You're going to need time to get up there. You're going up against Brady and you're a rookie. And I want to give them more exposure. But if you even look at with DPC, it's only 2 teams per season that are going to get any international experience out of South America. And to clarify, as we've stated, what matters in Dota, majors and TI. Those are LANs. Those are a different format from how we handle the DPC. So we're really not preparing them for competition on an international stage. We're just slightly subsidizing the prize pool. And I believe we can do that while also creating an environment where you have more exposure to real Dota, the way it's going to be played when it counts.
Okay. So now my answer is, I hear you. And we have proved in Valve that we have done those things in the past. The problem is that during Corona, we have not been able to execute to that. And we have not been able to get players from all the places that we want to get it. So we don't want to do an international LAN with just some of the regions. One second, Kyle. So you can't deny the complexity of some of these problems. We plan an event in Stockholm and we have to push it. We plan something else. So it's not that we haven't tried. Yes, Kyle?
But there's another game, Counter-Strike, that doesn't seem to run into these problems.
And it's very glad that you mentioned this. I will tell you why. Because 95% of the teams in Counter-Strike are in the same region in the world. There's no Chinese teams. There is no Southeast Asian teams. There is no this. Everybody's playing on the same thing. And by the way, they have encountered these problems before. That's why Blast, for example, or EPL, or even the RMR had to do it with the regional, because they couldn't get people together. So North America Blast became just North America and they could never come here. It's just the globality of Dota takes us to different places around the world where we have not been able to get people here. We haven't. I'm not saying that maybe we could have done a better job. Maybe we're just unlucky with some of the dates. But Dota has been a land world circuit. But right now, even now, we forget sometimes that we're not out of the valley right now from COVID. China is completely locked down again. So I think that we live in an imperfect system. And I do feel that this system that we have right now, it has room to improve. You guys have pointed out very smart things from me that I think that they are very good points, very solid points. But I do think that we have to figure out how to work within the real world that we live in. We need something that happens online, something right now. Let's figure out what is the best version of LAN. And if we have X amount of weeks, maybe we should tackle it differently, Maybe we should do 2 different entries into the DPCs, Not only one every 6 weeks. Maybe we do I don't know if you follow League of Legends in North America, the LCS, they changed the format to be more games. So now that there is this Spark group and then this Spark group. And before it used to be only the last group what takes you to World, The first split takes you to MSI and the second split takes you to World. So then it's like, where am I playing for half of the season if I'm not taking the point? Okay, well now all the games are counting for Worlds. But it means that now it's like us, like Dota. It's very growling throughout the whole thing. So maybe we have to create different entries into DPC. But I don't think that we're that far away, guys. I know it really feels really bad, but I don't think that we're that far away. And don't you think that this has helped immensely the tier 2 scene?
What? Because second place gets
they have exposure. They're playing on the stream.
Exposure.
They're playing on the stream. They're playing right after OG Secret. You get the tier 2 scene. That you're dragging the viewership. You're telling the story.
Then why aren't they sponsored? If exposure is so valuable, why aren't they sponsored?
I think that a lot of teams are running maybe bad businesses, and it's not my job to build a business for them. I am creating the best game that I can with the best exposure for the teams and for the players. I think we made something very good, and we have a great product at TI, and we have great casters, and we have great players, and we have a great game.
For some, worse for others. We used to have something that was better, and it was taken away by the length, by increasing the length, increasing the duration, and also like making the games, I would say, less overall throughout the year made it worse. Like, you want intensity and you want more games. There are so few games happening of good Dota 2 ever since Corona.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, one thing, is your life better for you guys? Because one of the things that we wanted to achieve with this 6-week thing is we wanted to get people to stay home, have pets, have significant others, have meaningful relationships with the outside. Because I remember 3 years ago, in every ownership meeting, everybody was complaining, I don't have a life, I'm traveling 300 days a year. Don't you think that we have addressed that?
It's worse than ever. Now everybody gets it. Back in the day, you could play your way to your freedom, to your liberty. Now nobody gets it.
Can you explain that a little bit better, Johan? What do you mean playing your way through your liberty?
So when you were starting a season, TI had just ended. Last year's TI winner was already in a pretty good spot to get in there again. There, you stay together as a team, and you don't flunk out incredibly. I'm talking back when Valve used to hand out invites. You would only go under the assumption that since you were last year's winner, maybe a direct invite is not granted, but close to it. I think that was great. You want to see the previous champion there, and if they stick together, I think they earned that spot at TI. But a spot at TI still doesn't mean the world. It's just your opportunity. It's another opportunity that you get. But here, the season starts. You have one team that is very likely to go. Even second place maybe have some residual points. But for everyone else, it's a free-for-all, and you want to get a tournament win right away. You want to get a top 3 placement or 2 right away in the beginning of the year, because then it allows you to kind of pick and choose. And if you decide to grind like crazy and travel 300 days a year, even though you had that success, that's on your own choice, and that's on your choice to then, that's your way to get better for TI. But if you want to be smart about it, if you want to plan around things, I'm not saying to get lazy and to just go do things that aren't Dota, because I think that's also going to come back to bite you. But you at least have an opportunity to balance out things and balance out how you want to do the rest of the season. And if you're a team that didn't get that, well, you're going to have to still keep grinding. But still, with that system, it was way easier, better, more hype, more enjoyable to play Dota, to actually get to a higher level. It's also preparing you for TI. But now it's full misery all around for everyone. And I'm talking mental health deterioration. I'm talking unhappiness. I'm talking away from home, making more sacrifices than you'd ever have to make. Because before you had an on and off relationship, now you have no choice. You have to stay on.
Yeah. And it's, I think, just another example of like iteration, right? The prize pools for the season, DPC season from 2018-19 season, the 2019-2020 season was 6.5 million, right? Prize pool for the DPC leagues is 280, including Div 1, Div 2. It's 1.6 million per season, plus the 3 majors at 500K. What do we get? $6.54 million. So it's effectively just the same concept, but a redistribution of those funds. The best season, and I think the one that we all liked best, what I remember was the glory days, was 2017, 2018. We had 11 majors, we had 11 minors, we had over $13 million throughout the seasonal prize pool. And this is a drum I've been beating for a long time. The amount of money in the season is decreasing, okay, year over year. And I also consider the amount of time needing to be spent as, like, we're increasing time spent, but lowering the money involved while TI prize pool keeps going up. And I just think that this is it's so unhealthy. And maybe it makes for like a cool storyline for all of 2 weeks, but I've been a Dota player. I've been in this community for a long time. I have never felt so much misery. And at this last TI, this wasn't fucking TI. This was the Hunger Games, okay? Even the winners, like, you look at Yutoro's face, the guy is shell-shocked. Yeah, there's joy. Yeah, they're happy. But it's more like, holy shit, I survived. And that's also why there's this sense of camaraderie, I think, now that's been developing behind the scenes with all these players, because they've been around for a long time. Puppy and Crow and Nota, they've been competing against each other for a decade. And they're all just they're older now. They got like families and shit. They got hometowns, they've got communities, and they're forced to spend more than half of the year boot camping with a bunch of teenagers if they want to have a chance to succeed. It's okay. Like,
so we're mixing again a few things. So first is, come on, TI, we tried. We tried to make the best TI possible. You can't blame us for, a week before, 3 days before, the Romanian government just closing down. We were supposed to be a good thing. And we could have chosen not to do TI again, but we tried to do TI because we understood how important it was. And I think, in all due respect, I think that even with TI that was not what we wanted, it was good. It was good having TI. You know that. The year before we didn't have TI, and it was really, really bad. We nearly killed half of the teams. So we needed to have TI no matter what. Then I agree with one of the things that you're saying, and I want to emphasize it a little bit more for the three of you. Cap, how old are you, if I may ask?
I am 32. 31.
And you, Kyle?
29, almost 30.
And you, Johan?
28.
28. Okay, so we are right now you guys are in a different stage in your life that you were 5 years ago when all this started. And you guys are in a different stage in your life where some of the 16-year-old, 17-year-old, all that. Do you find it harder to stay committing into this space as your life changes and your needs change?
Yeah, dude. Bro, I can't fly like that anymore. I was a lunatic. I did like 25 LAN events in 1 year. I was flying like budget airlines in Europe and Asia. Like those, I think I would be so, I did some crazy shit. I remember one LAN, we finished a DreamHack or an ESL, and like this next day flew to DreamHack and then took the shuttle straight to the studio to go work. I can't do that anymore. I can't fly 17 hours. Like, oh my God, I'm old. My joints hurt. I got tennis elbows sometimes. I'm falling apart. So I don't play.
How about you, Cap?
It's definitely harder to commit to this life over time, and I think for casters, if you get into one of the DPCs, the stability is nice. It's definitely a benefit, but I think at the same time, the question of whether or not, and this is not necessarily your Valve's responsibility, but the question of whether or not like I should keep doing this, because at the end of the day, like, what is the payout? When it comes to like other avenues, sports commentary and such, that is a career that is lifelong. But for esports, unfortunately, that is you don't do well enough in esports commentary for people to stay committed. Most people end up transitioning into coaching, general management. They go onto the team org side or the tournament organizer side and work in production or somewhere up the ladder. But I don't know if that has anything to do with Valve. But
no, but as Valve, let me put what question. I want. I want to have the best product at TI. In order to have the best product, I need the best casters, I need the best players, I need the best coaches, I need the best CEOs, I need the best managers, I need the best brands, So if I, as Valve, do not reward the people staying, then I would lose quality. So now there's this dichotomy where I can think, well, if it's not Cap, we will find the next Cap. I know, but Cap was built through years and years and years. How long have you been doing this?
Over 10 years now.
Yep. Our first cast together was in 2008 or 9. So
how much better are you right now than you were 5 years ago?
I like to think I'm much better, for sure. And I think commentary is definitely something that you can constantly be growing and learning more, both about the game and the technique.
So if I somehow don't incentivize or keep the best talent, we're going to have hard times nurturing the new talents that are coming in because they have to learn from you. And we're going to have an immediate decrease of the quality of the product, correct? And we don't want that. I want the best product.
And I think the best way for that for Valve, like Valve doesn't need to subsidize me exactly, but I think an increased competition between the production of the current tournament organizers and those streams, because of what we were already talking about the previous, like you only get one of the prime series in 6 weeks, combined with the fact that other regions, like if you look at the hiring of some of the other DPC regions, Western Europe and NA, because it's ESL and Dream League, they hire the most amount of talent. But some of the other regions, they hire a lot less talent. And there was even the fact that there was the first major, right? There was the implication that tournament organizers they weren't necessarily interested in the first major. Well, that's not really their problem. That's kind of Valve's problem, right? In the case that, like, if you don't have tournament organizers who are interested in doing your first major, it means you're not giving them a financial incentive to do so. And I think the same thing applies to your DPC coverages when it comes to these remote coverages and such. If you want to be able to have them put on a better product, you have to be able to financially incentivize them to do so.
Okay. That's a very good point. Johan, do you think that we're doing a good job retaining talent and the best players? Or you think that this system and what happens, for example, it was an eye-opening moment for me when you guys all retired or all stopped playing or took a break? Because obviously as Valve, I want the best players and the best faces and the best teams and the best stories. Do you think that we will maybe continue to lose people?
Most definitely. I think most definitely. I think other people who have played for as long as I have, with seeing that the system doesn't get any better, continues to get worse or stagnate at the same poor level. It's very demotivating. It's very hard to want to keep going. The grind increases and the goal kind of gets put, there's more distance between you and like the goal, which is, I'm not talking about the goal of winning TI, I'm talking about the goal of playing TI, because you want to get there, but you don't want to have to go through an insane tedious process every year to do it when you feel like there was a better system that was more hype and equally fair. I don't think this is more fair. I think, yes, it does give worse teams a better chance to get there. I think it does, but not in a fair way. And that's the points we mentioned with like how Dota works and with pubs and whatnot. So yeah, and in terms of talent, I've heard stories as well that people don't want to go to events because of the extent of the DPC and how long it takes. And when you're doing an offline studio and you're actually casting on site or casting somewhere on site, then it's such a massive sacrifice to make. There can be a better way, overall a better way. You could have 2 tournaments in the span of DPC, 2 LAN events. You could have 2 full LAN events with whatever group stage, with whatever you want to have going on. You could make that fit in 8 weeks if you wanted to, or 7.
Throw a break in there.
Yeah,
as well.
You could even throw a break in there. There's plenty of time. And the teams would love it. I think the casters would enjoy more, and talent would enjoy more, and production would enjoy. I mean, obviously, and TOs would love it. I mean, it's opportunity, but all these opportunities have gone away. And the only thing that I see good come out of it is certain tier 2 scenes in certain regions. I think tier 2 scene in Europe is way, way worse off than before DPC came in.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Instead of having like bi-monthly competitions to maybe break in and get experience against the top teams, now you're just one of the lucky 2 that gets to go up and, it's, yeah.
And
I'll just say, talking to players, like if nothing changes next year, we're going to lose a lot of names. We're going to lose a lot of people, like people that we're going to miss in Dota. And you can be, I hated last TI qualifiers watching Liquid and OG Nigma. Wow, the TI finals in the finals of the European qualifier. That's so cool. No, it's not fucking cool, guys. I think Kuroki, Nigma was one of the best 18 teams in the world, and they didn't go to TI. I think that's dumb.
And Tundra, Tundra too.
And I forgot Tundra. Oh
Tundra
my god,
so fucking
we're
hard.
losing teams that grind. And I'm not saying it's oh well, if they wanted to, they should have won. That's just such a toxic way of looking at it. The same way, oh well, if we lost Puppy or Ice or No Tail, it's fine. We have new players coming in. That's such a bad thought. Tom Brady just came out of retirement. You got these guys that are literally sacrificing their bodies and their brains, who love the game so much they're going to keep playing it. And we have created a system that is driving these people who have built their lives and careers around their love of this game. And it's too much for them. They're not having fun. They're too stressed out. There's way too much time commit for what is effectively playing the lottery, hoping you get to TI, hoping you go top 3 at TI. And it just come on, man.
Okay, so let's wrap it up. So I would say it's been a long podcast. You guys don't know that, but we had a lot of technical issues. I think that we have resolved or comment a few things, but I think we should come back another day and continue talking more about this, because I feel that we just start scratching the surface of some of the issues.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to the solution yet, which correct. We should provide.
Cap, we haven't talked about the good things. I think there are some good things about
last thoughts for you before we wrap it up.
I think that I think it's understandable that Valve created the system that they did. I initially was really excited about it. I think the biggest disappointment was the fact that we just didn't get an improvement from last year to this year, because I think there was a lot of improvements offered by the community, and unfortunately we didn't really take any of those. And there are some things like, I think the team supporter packs and the fan packs, or the talent actually got an upgrade in signatures and stuff. I think those were great ideas, and they may not have been especially with the DPC seasons, they may not have been financially as impactful as I think some team organizations wanted them to be. They were still good ideas, and I think good ideas that can be improved upon and iterated on. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that we just want to see, right, is just that improvement, that continued improvement, because we created something new, and there's obviously, anytime you create something new, there's going to be a lot of flaws with it that can be improved upon dramatically.
Thank you so much. Kyle, last thought for you?
No, I mean, Cap makes a good point. I just think that we should keep trying to make things better. And I think sometimes it feels like, well, isn't this, I'm never satisfied with good enough. And, it's probably one of my bigger flaws, even as a Dota captain, or maybe even a human being, is that I don't want to be satisfied with, oh, well, this is okay. All this works. No, we can make it better. Why don't we make it better? I love the fan pack idea, but why did we, teams get when they are launched, teams have 1 week to submit. They're priced the same no matter the region, even though, again, Twitch subs from Netflix to blah, blah, blah. Everything is different prices based on region, and there's no permanence to it. So you're not buying anything from my team, you're renting it. And I think that should change. I think teams maybe should have a little bit of influence on how things are operating. But this is a whole other conversation. What has to really change is the mentality, because we haven't earned anything. It's what are we given? And I feel strongly that my friends, talent, and my friends who are players have earned their place here, and they should not feel as if they're Oliver Twist asking for more. We don't necessarily want more. I'd be satisfied if you just removed the DPC, if you make it shorter. Just give us the ability to do our own shit. You can't control the half the season, half the year, and just not care enough to make edits, because there's a lot of people around who would.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your comment. Johan, for you, last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for having a nice chat with us, Valve. No, I would like to say that every year when you go to TI, you have a representative from Valve talk to all the teams at once. And it always gets brought up that we are partners in this endeavor, that we're both winning here, we're both building together. And on some level, you feel a type of equality. Of course, they're the publisher and it's their game. But I do feel a lot of what Kyle is saying is I don't want to have this constant feeling of mercy. And if I do, then I also don't want to be called a partner. I don't want to be portrayed as a partner. If it is truly going to be a partnership, I want to, solidify that definition of that word and feel more valued. I don't want Dota to start having a downfall. I don't want TI to not have an increase in prize pool. I want it to increase every year. I don't see that happening. Like, let's say Kuro and Puppy, they say enough is enough. Like, one more DPC season, I can't do it, and you lose those two guys. I don't see how Dota is going to thrive more from that. I think it's going to be a big hit. And I think it's a shame. If best way I could put it, I think it's just a shame that through lack of communication, through lack of willingness to kind of stick to words and go through with things, we're left with a lot of these feelings. And I guess, Valve, same thing, that it could be better. We're not nice to each other, or as nice as could be, and we don't fulfill the things that we're supposed to fulfill. But all I can say is, yeah, we're here. I know that most of the teams, if not all the teams that I talk to in Division 1, they're all ready to make a good product. We're all ready to play good Dota, make good shit happen. We just want to get that level of, partnership, transparency, and I mean, there are people here ready to work, ready to create, ready to do shit. My first opportunity also working with talent or directly with talent in Dubai, and it was mind-blowing. It's so cool what this game is built on. It's built on community and just years of experience and years of wanting something for no money, and no nothing. And I think it would be nice to make sure that we can all keep doing this as good as possible, not have financial strains, not have financial worries. I'm not saying that for my own sake. I'm saying it for the longevity and the health of the whole scene and all the teams, including Tier 2. But I'm also, I'm starting again with where I'm at and with where the team is at and other teams, Tier 1, Division 1, Europe. It's been way worse ever since COVID, and then with the DPC getting forced in afterwards or implemented.
Sorry. Okay.
No, I was gonna just wrap it up and say, I'm still happy about Dota. I'm still happy about everything. I'm still happy to be here. I do feel blessed. I do feel Valve has given many lives a great opportunity, and I do want to thank and say I appreciate it. Of course I appreciate it. But like Kyle said in a good way, I do also feel like I've earned something in this game. The game is not just a game. I want to say that I've become part of it, and I've dedicated my fucking life to it. So hopefully, I'm not saying a big part, just a small one. And it would be nice to hear. It would be nice to get that real feeling also. Not just the name and the Aegis, but a little something more,
And to clarify, I have a ton of I was just going to say, this is my home, man. I didn't really ever feel at home until Esports, until Han, until Dota. Like Johan, I think the first time we hung out was 2010 at the cabin at DreamHack. Fucking freezing cold. 12 years ago, giggling over playing Armadan. WWW. I don't feel at home outside of LAN events. Like, that is my home. Dota is my home, and I want to spend more time there. I can't quit this game. It's not possible for me. It's part of my life. And it hurts me when I see people that have been a part of my community, part of my life, like that live with me in this space, that are not happy, that are not healthy. And I want to provide an environment where everyone can thrive and people can enjoy their lives playing the game that they love. And I want this to occur until I'm very old, because I love this game and I can't make new friends at this point. It's too late, guys. It's too late for me. I'm stuck here.
Amazing. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time and your incredible insight. I hope that the audience and the people that watch this enjoy this. I am obligated to say, please like, subscribe, or leave comments in the bottom if you want new questions to be asked to these wonderful people, and we will do our best to bring them back. Caps, thank you so much. It meant a lot for me that you were here. Kyle, thank you so much. And Johan, thank you so much. And wrap it up. See you guys next week.